Hey guys, welcome back to another video in the Underwood testing playlist. In this video, we'll create our search image use case and test it. We'll also add the functionality of searching for images in our ViewModel and test those. And then we'll also create our UI for the add note screen, also the dialog that search for an image. And then we'll finally be able to actually use the app and see it. And then in the next videos, we'll test the UI, we'll create end-to-end testing. So let's actually go to Underwood Studio and just close everything, go to our domain, and here we'll create our search. Since we want to search for images inside the add note screen, we want to go into the use case of our domain add notes, and then we'll create the new use case that is search images. I'm missing an R right here, let's add that. Now what this one is going to take a private var images repository. Okay, that's what we need. Let's create space. And then let's have a suspend fun, okay, operator fun invoke. This one takes the query that you want to search for of type string, and it returns a flow of type resource. Actually, maybe I don't have this resource yet. Let's paste that. So that resource is going to be inside my presentation since it's presentation related. Inside presentation, we'll create a new package called util, and let's just paste it. Okay. So we've already seen something like this. It's a resource that takes a generic type and it returns data. What we do when we're actually trying to load the images, first of all, we start loading. So this is loading. So we emit this resource with a flow, because with a flow we can emit multiple things. And the first emission will be that we started loading. So this one is true. And then when we get the images, we emit a success with the data that is the images. So a list of image, as you can see, and then we stop loading. We emit another emission that is we stop loading. We're no longer loading. And our view model observes those. So when we start loading, we show the progress indicator. And then when we successfully get the images, we show the images and then we hide the progress indicator. Or actually then this one will be also false. So we'll hide the progress indicator. If something goes wrong, if we have an error, then we'll emit this error. We can emit any default data that we want with an error, or we can emit nothing if we don't want to. So that's exactly what we need this resource for. Okay, so import that. List of image, maybe is it image or images? So it's not image, actually it's called images from this one. Okay, and let's create the body. Let's remove one of these, and actually not a list of images but just images. That's the problem here. And then we want to return a flow like this, and this flow maybe, yeah, that's the incorrect flow, so let's just re-import it from coroutines. Okay, so we won't actually implement our function yet. Let's create a test for this use case first and test it. Of course, that's going to be a unit test, and delete this. And then for this test, let's paste the things that we need to set up. So we need our fake images repository that we've created. As you can see, here it is, and we already said that it returns this list of images URLs, but if we have an error, then it returns null. And then we have our image or search images use case. That's it. Now let's start testing it. So the first test is going to be when we search an invalid query or an empty query simply. So add test fun, that is going to be search images with empty query, just like this. But this is going to be actually run test. And we expect it to return an error because the query is empty, and what that error is in the resource, it's this one. Okay, so now let's write our test right here. That is going to be my search images dot invoke, passing my query, that is an empty query, dot collect, since that's a flow. So collect result like this. As you can see, I get a result in here. I just want to check now the type of my results. So when my result is, and I can add the remaining branches like that. So when I have a loading, I don't care because now I'm trying to make sure that I get an error, and here as well. So I care about error in this case. I just want to assert that and import it like this. Result dot data that is nullable dot images is null. So I need to assert that it's null, and that is true. So it's truly null. We run the test, but it will fail maybe because we didn't implement the function yet. It's a success because the problem is that I returned the flow, which is something I shouldn't have done. And now let's rerun it. I shouldn't have written anything in the function. Okay, the test fails. Now let's actually implement it. So this is supposed to return a flow like that. And then the first emission, as I said, so emit resource dot loading is true because we started loading, and then the last thing we'll do is that we are not loading, and then in between we'll start getting our images. So that is going to be vol images is going to be my images repository dot search images, passing my query. But instead of actually writing it like this, I'd rather use a try catch in here. So I put this one inside it right here, so like this, and then catch any exception if I have them. So exception like this. So when I get an exception, the first thing is that I stop loading, I return from my flow, but then I emit an error. So error like this. Then I can also e.print stack trace, so I would know what's going on, and that's it. So when I have an error, that's what's going to happen. But if I don't have an error, I get here, I use my images and I make sure that they are not null dot let. Here I get images simply, and in this case now I emit a success, and they also stop loading. So emit a success, that is my images, then I stop loading, and then I return from the flow. That's it. But if this was null, then I technically also want to emit an error right here. Maybe we have different names or the same names in here, so we can just do this and then pass in it. All right, the function is implemented. Let's rerun the test that failed the last time because we didn't implement the function. Now it passes, so this one is actually null when we have an error. Now let's just copy this test, and now we want to search with a valid query but with network error. So with network or something with an error, simply with network error, okay, like that. And all I'm going to do is using my repository, so my fake images repository dot should have network error or error that is true, and this also should return an error, so like this. Let's rerun this test, run it, and it passes. And let's just copy it again, for maybe it's already copied. Yes, it already is. Now search images with what now? With valid query, but now it should return a success. Okay, so the query could be anything like query, but then we don't really have an error this time. We should have a success. So let's go to the success one, and the data assert that it's not null, so we also get the data in the success. Let's run the test. It passes, which is great. And now a similar test to this one, we want to make sure that the list that we get here is not actually empty. So search images with a valid query, and then list is not empty as what we expect. So I'm just going to write dot images dot size is actually greater than 0. Maybe we have to insert this, and images is nullable. Well, hopefully this won't cause any problems. It won't, it should pass that the size is greater than 0 because we already have some images in our fake repository, as you would see right here. As you can see, we have some images. So let's rerun all the tests at once to make sure that they all pass, and yes. Now the last thing I want to check is if, let's say, I put an invalid query, but then I make sure that it's actually really not null, so this test now should fail. It should fail, and yeah, it does fail because now it's not null. And let's also check another one like this one, in which we also want to make sure that the test does fail, or something like the size images dot size is actually greater than 0. Now it should also fail, so like this. Maybe do we have to add that? Yes, it should also fail because it's not greater than 0. Yeah, so that's exactly what we expect it to return. So we can just go back here, and maybe here as well, that it is actually null. And in here, for example, we input a valid query, and we are going to get 4 images, so the size is 4. Let's say it's equal to 0. So this one again should fail because it's not equal to 0. Yes, so our tests are working just fine. We can now run all of them again. But then one of them failed, which is this one. So we input an invalid query, but then the list is actually null, not null. Yep, our tests are working as expected. Great. Now the next thing is creating our view model. In fact, not creating our view model, but adding the functionality of searching for an image in our add node view model. So let's work now with these 3 actions that we have in here. The first one is picking an image. Let's just copy this because it's pretty easy. That's going to be image URL is going to be action.image URL, and then on search image query change, that's going to be search images query, search or new query, maybe that's what it's called. And then when we try to hide our dialogues, we want to update it again. Is image dialog showing? That is going to be the opposite of it dot is image dialog showing. Actually, right here, after getting our query, we want then to search the image. So search image, which is a function that we don't have yet. That's going to be action dot new query, or the query itself. Okay, so let's create that function down here. That function first needs a coroutine job. So private var search job is going to be of type job. By default, it is null, and we'll see actually why we need it later. Fun search image, that will take a query of type string like that, and then that's it. Let's now test it by going to our UI test or unit tests, I'm sorry, and then add nodes presentation, add node view model, and let's test that. So we can just copy any of these tests and reuse it. So that is going to be searching an image with an empty query. We should actually have an empty image list. So search image with empty query, not returns false, but image list is empty, so we expect it to be an empty list. So what image list? Of course, in our view model, in our state, this image list. Okay, now let's go back to the test and let's test that. So that is going to be my add node viewModel.search image, passing an empty query, and then I want to assert that my add node viewModel dot, what is that, add node state dot value dot image list dot is empty. I want to assert that it's empty. It should actually be empty because we don't have anything. So what is the view model actually? So we don't have anything that makes it not empty. It's empty. This test will pass, but it doesn't mean that it works. Okay, we don't have to run it, it will pass. But that is just write the other tests that won't actually pass. Okay, so now I want to search image with, actually this one is query, not URL, with a valid query, but with error, something like that. And then we expect list to also be empty, so we want to search with a good query or a valid query, but then I also want to have a network error. So my fake images that I don't actually have, so let's create it in here, private list init var fake images repository, and let's initialize that. Fake images repository is going to be fake images repository. Okay, let's go down here again, and then fake images repository dot should return error. That's a true, since I want to have an error, and then we want to search, but then the list will also be empty. The only thing that we should also know is that this function will actually have a view model scope launched inside it, so we need that rule that probably we don't have in here, so let's just create it. So it is this coroutine rule, and then before actually, or yeah, after calling our function, we want to use our rule. So main coroutine rule dot dispatcher dot schedule dot advanced until idle. We need that because this function will have a coroutine scope launched inside it. So here as well we need it. And then the last thing is when we search for a valid query with no actual errors. So search valid query, image list is now not empty. We don't have any network error, and it is not empty. Now let's run these tests. Let's run all the tests actually and see which test will fail. One test failed, which is the last test in here, which is search for a valid query, but then the list shouldn't be empty, but it's empty because, of course, the function isn't implemented. So let's implement it. The first thing is if our query is empty or so. Probably we already handled that, I'm not sure. In the use case, I wrote this, but probably not in the video. So if the query is blank, then I'm just not going to do anything, okay? So I already handled that in there. So what I'm going to do is I first want to cancel my search job dot cancel. So if there is a job that is already running, then I want to cancel it because now I want to start a new job. So search job is going to be a view model scope dot launch. So now I want to start a new job, and I don't want to search with every letter the user enters because they can enter a lot of letters in a really short time. So with every letter, then I will actually search, which is something I don't want. So I'm going to put a delay that I search only every half a second. Okay, so they input something, and then when they stop for half a second, I then search. If they keep just inputting things, then I don't actually search. All right, then I want to use my search image. Maybe I did not actually pass that here, so let's do that first. Private var search images. Okay, so this could also be called search images to be consistent with the names. So search images dot invoke, passing my query dot collect, again just like the state. Here we get a resource or a result, whatever you want to call it. We get a result when my result is, add the remaining branches. When it's an error, then in this case I want to update my add node state dot update, and then it dot copy image list is going to be an empty list because I have an error. In case I'm just loading, then I again want to update, but now is loading images is going to be my result dot is loading, and when I successfully get the images, I again want to update my images list to be now my, so let's just go to a new line, result dot data that is nullable dot images. In case it's null, then an empty list. That's it. The function is implemented, and that's all I need. So we have something wrong. They say it should be private, but I already call it in here. Maybe I renamed it. Yes. Let's run the test. Which one failed? This one. Let's run that again. It actually fails because we need to pass our use case to the view model. So val search images is going to be search images, passing my fake images repository. That's what I'm missing. And I'm not sure if I actually provided that in my DI. I don't really remember, so let me just make sure. No, I didn't. So just actually do that because we need it. So here we have provide search images use case that takes an images repository. It returns the search images, and then search images takes the images repository. That's it. We will also do the same in core DI right here. And yes, let's run the test again. What is it? This one that failed. And it failed again. Maybe I know why. So let's go to my repository. I do inject the constructor here, my images API. So I don't have a problem in here. But then in my app, I actually don't provide the repository. That's the problem. So let's just do that. It will be something like this. So right here, provides images repository that takes an images API. This one returns images repository, actually in this case the implementation. So images repository implementation passing my images API, and that's what you want to return. We can just copy this for the other DI in my test. Let's paste it. But now it won't take any API, we don't need that. It would just return a fake underwood images repository. In this case, it doesn't take anything, and it returns images repository. Now let me just make sure that I don't have any extra. I actually do have one. That's it. Actually in here, we want to return images repository. Let's rerun the test. Hopefully now it works. Yep, the test passes. Now let's just run everything because we made some changes, making sure that everything works fine, but actually no. We have this test failed, which is search image with empty query, image is empty. So it's not empty, that's the problem. Is it because I run all the tests at once, or yeah, no, I have a problem here. So I have an empty query. That's exactly what I passed, an empty query to my function. And if this query is empty, then I return an error. Then my view model will get an error. The list is empty. The problem is actually right here in my use case. So I returned an error, but I didn't return from the flow. So even if I returned an error in here, I then continue it, as you can see, which is something I shouldn't have done. We rerun the test. Now it should pass with an empty query. The list should be empty. Good. Let's run all the tests in this class. Make sure that they all pass. And yes, they all pass. Okay, now I'm just going to paste the UI for this screen because, of course, we're not building any UI in this app. I mean, this playlist. So note list presentation right here. Actually, not there, but right here. So this is the UI. Maybe this one is called something else like note saved flow and test tag, and then import this one. What else we have? We want to import R. Still have two more errors, maybe in the import. Yeah, just delete these. Now we have our screen. So let's actually quickly see the screen, how it looks like. So we have an onSave that is called when we click on save. We have our view model, we have our state, and then on the launched effect, all we do is that we observe our not saved flow. If it's saved, if it sends a save, then we save it. If not, we show a toast. We have a column in which we have an async image first, which is this one that if we click on, we try showing the dialog, the image dialog or images dialog. We have a space, we have an outline text for the title. As you can see, we update it with the new title. Another outline text for the description, we update it with the new description, the enter. A button that just saves. As you can see, it just calls saving my view model. And then should we show the dialog or not? If yes, we show the dialog. And the content of my dialog is this content. So when we click on it, the dialog is shown. That has another outline text field that updates my search query in the view model. And we have a lazy column of images, and just we show those images. So if we search for anything, as you can see, we search for those images. But then if we are loading, we show a circular progress bar. And that's it. When we click on an image, then this on image click is triggered, and actually we update our picked image, which is this one. We update our image URL that is shown in there. That's it. That's for this one. Let's actually add that in my navigation in core presentation main activity right here. Let's create space. That is going to be my add note screen. Calling this onSave, let's just format this. In this onSave right here, I'm going to call my nav controller.pop backstack because I just want to go back to the previous screen, which is the note list screen. Let's run the app, and hopefully it actually works as expected because we tested everything, our view models, our use cases, and all those stuff. We made sure that everything is working properly. Here it is. Let's just click on add. We get here, new note. Okay, we do show this. Let's say, for example, something like right, whatever. We do search, but I'm not sure why I don't actually see images. We click on save. The note is saved. We can add a new one, new 2, for example. New 2. Okay, I can't actually see anything here. Anyway, I can save now. I think the problem is, but of course I can change the order. Maybe it is changing or not. So you just add something else like okay, whatever. I also don't seem to change the order. I'm not sure why. So A, B. Yeah, now the order is changing because it was already ordered. So the order is changing. Let's quit the app. Let's open it. My items are still there. I think the reason why I can't get the images is, let's go to core data remote DTO, so image DTO, or actually image list DTO. Yeah, image DTO right here. I don't want the image URL. Instead, I want the preview URL. So I'm just going to change that. And in my mapper, I'm still using it. So let's just go to mapper, image mapper. I'm still using my image or my preview URL now. Hopefully now it does load the images. I don't know if it's the problem in the URL or in the API or something like so. So let's see this again. Search for an image. Okay. Yeah, it was just the URL. Now we can actually set an image, as you can see, and then something. Save that. Our image is there. We can definitely order this. We can add a new one, like 1, to make sure that the ordering is still working. Searching for 1 again, anything, and then let's save that. So here it is, and it goes to the top because they are ordered by the title, and everything is working just fine, as you can see with the app. Now in the next videos we'll start creating our UI tests, end-to-end tests. So see you and bye.